Thank you. Well, first of all, let me start with a personal expression of gratitude to Imam and Primako for readings. It's the first time that I am attending this forum. A personal touch in the sense that I have started my diplomatic career in Moscow in 1981 as a second secretary of the Turkish Embassy during the Soviet Union time. And of course that adds to the accumulation of your knowledge about Turkish relations with the Soviet Union and then continued with the Turkish-Russian relations. And then, quite interestingly, I worked at NATO as a member of the International Secretariat, and in 1994 I launched the NATO Information Office in Moscow, which was of course another experience for me to come back after the disintegration of the Soviet Union. And then in 1996 and 1997, I was heavily involved in the drafting of the NATO-Russia Founding Act. And that was the time, of course, when I had the opportunity to visit Moscow several times and meet a very distinguished statesman, Mr. Primakov, personally. So I think all these have some kind of a bearing on my understanding of the Turkish-Russian relations. Yesterday, we heard a lot of distinguished speakers talking about the role of China and India and the relations between Russia and these two countries as far as the evolving Eurasian perspective is concerned. Today we are talking about Turkey and Turkish-Russian relations, which is of course entirely different from what we have discussed yesterday, because Turkey is a part of the West, actually, and it is a representative of the West because it's a member of the Euro-Atlantic structures, the Euro-Atlantic institutions, organizations, and it's a member of NATO, OSCE, OECD, certainly a country which is aspiring for membership in the European Union, and also a founding member of the Council of Europe. So all these actually give Turkey a very important status as far as its role in the Eurasian politics is concerned. So the Eurasian dimension, from Turkey's perspective, is actually a kind of a factor of its Europeanness. Now, I will try to structure my initial remarks on 5 issues and 5 questions that I would like to address. One is what is the driving force behind Russian-Turkish cooperation, and does this cooperation promote Russia's and Turkey's national interests on the world stage? And I think my simple and very direct answer to that would be history and geography, because as it has been mentioned before about the geopolitics, reference to geopolitics, history of course has a very important role to play in determining the Turkish-Russian relations, because we have a very long and a very established history. We have been at war several times during that history. But, and the geography, of course, brings us very close to each other because we are neighbors. But all these actually sum up to a kind of an understanding and a respect to one another. And that is exactly the main driving force between Turkey and Russia, the respect and understanding of each other. So this is exactly what the current Turkish-Russian relations are based on, and that is actually the driving force. The commonality of interests is another thing that I would like to mention, because both countries would like to see stability and peace in the region that they are acting and they are interacting. And when it comes to peace and stability, of course, and of course we are talking here under the Primakov readings forum, Mr. Primakov's primary focus was the Middle East. And the stability and peace in the Middle East, particularly the cooperation between Russia and Turkey in the Syrian context, and also in Libya, play a very important role in that sense. So it's a commonality of interests that we have in both countries. The second question that I would like to respond to is, what place will Russia and Turkey occupy in the new world order? It has been mentioned that Turkey has been coming back to the geographies which are encircling Turkey, starting with the Caucasus and of course in a distant geography like Central Asia, but also, as I mentioned, in the Middle East, in Syria. I think both countries will continue to be very important actors in all these regions. And that is actually going to make an impact on the evolving new world order and the Eurasian politics. Because they both continue to be the important building blocks between the East and the West. I mean, we are talking about Russia as a very important major Eurasian actor, but let us not forget that Russia has been a very important European power, all in history in the past, and still has a very important influence in European politics. So this is something that we have to count on, and exactly Turkey has the same role as far as history is defining it, and as far as the current situation allows it to be. So both countries will continue to be the main building blocks between the East and the West, and that is going to be a very important role that they will be playing in the new world order. The third issue that I want to address is, can we say that Turkey is trying to take on a new role in international relations, and what is this role? I think it has been referred to as far as the Caucasus is concerned, the role that Turkey has played in the past, after 2008, during the war between Georgia and Russia, where the Caucasus Stability and Cooperation Platform was introduced by Turkey. And again, in 2020, when the second war between Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan and Armenia on the Nagorno-Karabakh issue took place, Turkey also played a very important factor and a role together with Russia. So my answer to the role that Turkey is going to take is a simple word, which is facilitator. Because Turkey has been facilitating a lot of difficulties in its close geography, not only in the Caucasus, but also together with Russia. As far as the Syrian quagmire is concerned, Turkey has been a very active actor, and they played a very important role for the facilitation of both the talks between the opposition and the administration in Damascus, but also in playing a role for the enhancement of Geneva talks through the Astana process. And that is something that we cannot neglect and undermine. And that actually is a kind of a role that Turkey has played. It is not mediation. I have to make a distinction between mediator and facilitator. Turkey is a very important facilitator, not only in this geography. Turkey has been facilitating several other bilateral disputes in the Balkans, for example, but also in the African Horn, between Somalia and its neighbors, but also between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So this role that Turkey has is a very important determining element for Turkey. And Turkey is playing the same role of facilitation in the evolving situation between Russia and Ukraine. The grain deal was mentioned. It's not only the grain deal. The grain deal has been actually extended on the 19th of November due to the extensive efforts that the Turkish Foreign Minister and also Turkish President have been involved in during the negotiations with both presidents of Russia and Ukraine. So it is important to mention this. And I think Turkey attributes great importance to the resolution of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, because Turkey is probably the only country which has direct relations with both countries, not only in history but also currently in the Black Sea. Turkey is probably the only country which has very good neighborhood relations and neighborly relations with both countries. So this is something that makes the role of Turkey important. Now the fourth issue that I want to mention is, what are the prospects for regional interaction between Russia and Turkey? In which regions can Russia and Turkish interaction be most effective? I think it has been already mentioned. The Caucasus is one of the areas where we can, of course, underline. The second geography would be certainly Central Asia, because Turkey has developed extensive relations with the Central Asian countries after the disintegration of the Soviet Union. All the Western powers were focusing on developing relations primarily with Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, because they were the only nuclear powers of the post-Soviet situation. Turkey actually tried to reach out to all the other new independent states, both in the Caucasus and also in Central Asia, tried to develop equidistant relations with all countries on an equitable basis. So I think in all these geographies, but now certainly in the Middle East, Turkey is going to play a very important role, and the prospects for regional interaction between Russia and Turkey will probably prevail in all these geographies that I have mentioned. And fifthly, what are the reasons for the sustainability of Russian-Turkish relations, which continue to develop despite emerging challenges and external pressure? I think my answer will be the same answer that I gave for the first question. It is about the respect, and it is about the sustainability of the relations between two countries, the mutual understanding and the commonality of interests. Now, I want to make a final remark about the issues which have been discussed and mentioned yesterday. One of the things that I want to mention is, as I have been drafting the NATO-Russia Founding Act, and which was, of course, the main basis for the NATO-Russia Council, I feel great regret that it's not functioning, because it was very important to become a very important mechanism for the common responsibility between the West and Russia for the sustainability of European security architecture. This is unfortunately now failing, and this is something that we have to repair with all the efforts that we can invest in. I'm afraid it will be quite hard to re-establish that kind of trust and confidence between the West and Russia after what has happened in Ukraine. But this does not mean that we shouldn't try, and we should insist on bringing this old mechanism, or maybe based on it, develop new innovative ideas so that we cannot create new dividing walls, and we do not create another division between the groups of countries which actually have to play a very important role in the European security architecture together, sharing the same responsibility. And then finally, I would also like to mention what Ambassador Varma mentioned as 6 items when he was referring to multipolarity. We have talked about multipolarity yesterday a lot, and multipolarity has been coming back to the stage by different distinguished speakers. But one thing that I want to underline is multipolarity needs very serious multilateralism. And this is exactly what we are lacking. And probably most of the problems that we are suffering today in international politics is the lack of multilateralism, or the weakening of multilateralism. For me, according to my understanding, the unipolarity ended in 2001 after the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers in New York. And that is something that we have to take into consideration. Multipolarity, in a very different sense, started with the rise of international terrorism. So it is not only the state actors or the international organizations which are acting in the international scene now, it is also the non-state actors, which also creates a very confusing situation. And this is the reason why we need to enhance multilateralism. If we can dwell on that, and if we can reintroduce the role that multilateralism